Hello, everybody. Welcome to the GraphRAG-Powered Agents presentation today. We're pleased to have Loys with us, who will be leading this presentation, and we'd like to now turn the time over to him.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. So I'm Loys Belleguie, so I'm working in Japan for a small startup, so small, not so small now, but Kolio Technologies, based in Tokyo. Myself, if you want to connect me, just don't hesitate to go on LinkedIn. And I've been in Japan for many years and working in different companies in this industry, but mainly IT. And this subject is quite new for me. So let me go here. So Kolio Technologies, just to give you a brief background, we are working on enterprise data intelligence. So that means that we try, actually we work with metadata of data. I didn't hear a lot about metadata in all these presentations, so I think it's quite unique. And it's what was called data catalog, but we prefer to call it data intelligence, actually. And the goal of that is to get the metadata of all the data landscape of the big companies and democratize the data. So breaking knowledge silos, which is basically data silos most of the time. And recently, so the AI boom is also asking for a lot of metadata to understand what kind of data the enterprises have, what kind of what are these data, etc., etc. So this activity actually for me is part of kind of research activity that in collaboration with Tokyo University and Dr. Hayashi. So just to give you the background of that. So our company is already Series A, and we are heading to Series B, hopefully. So just a brief introduction on what is metadata. So I think everybody knows what is metadata more or less. So it's if we start from the bottom, there is technical metadata like the names of the tables, the name, the kind of columns, the size, the data types, if there is any foreign keys, etc., etc. On top of that, there is more operational metadata. There is, for example, if you have SQL transformation and all these kind of things, it's also information that is not it's in the logs in the databases, and we extract that as metadata. But the more important for us today is what we call the business metadata. That means everything which is actually describing the data as a human readable or something more business oriented information. So for example, the table descriptions having tags or business relationships between data sets, etc. So this is just an example of Kolio solution. So you see here, this is a table, and this is the physical name of the table. And then the metadata is for example, this one in Japanese is the logical name that explains a little bit more what it is. And you have the descriptions here, and you can have tags like this. So it's really like a catalog at this point in time. So coming back to why we are doing that for the big enterprise. So usually as I mentioned, so the data is very fragmented and in most of the time siloed. So if it's a small company, of course, I think the people know about their data. They don't need to have a big catalog. But for big companies like our main customers is KDDI, so one of the top telecommunication companies. But for companies like, I don't know, in this case, in my graph here, it's a manufacturing example. For example, Toyota, whatever, Tesla, they have to deal with a huge value chain. So you can imagine going from the raw materials, the parts, the OEM, and the manufacturing chain, and then the sales, and then in between, you have a lot of logistics. And all these domains in the physical world create data. So, and this data is connected more or less, and that's what we call the digital thread. So it's not a digital twin, but it's a kind of same thing. And what we do is that we extract the metadata from all these data domains, and then we integrate that, and we try to find intelligence from that. So understand why this OEM data is connected with the BOM, which is the bill of material, which is the parts of the product. So if we want to have just an example of kind of business case that we want to deal with, if we have a Japanese company wanted to just export to Europe, for example, there's a lot of regulations recently. So usually there is some experts that know exactly what's going on. But if somebody here in the governance or business analyst want to do something a little bit more study on that, so he will start to ask, okay, where is the data that I need to find? And our approach is to put all the metadata, so what I call the semantic layer, in a knowledge graph, so Neo4j knowledge graph in this case, and then use LLM models and agent frameworks to query that, so as a GraphRAG. So that will be the topic of this presentation. So just to fix the ideas, again, the same table as before from the data catalog. So if you export that, if you express that as a knowledge graph, so you have exactly the same data, but in this case, you can benefit from the graph queries, and you can search for in your data catalog much easier. And then, of course, you can connect that to the business entities in business terms. You can also create relationships between all these nodes, and then the more important thing, you can also create relationships with more information that is not exactly not directly in the metadata. So that's one of the big thing that we are looking at now is how you actually ingest unstructured data. Unstructured data is usually not your database and the metadata you get from your database, but basically any kind of other documents, for example, internal documents, internal reports that are PDF, or you want HTML pages from open source data, everything that, for example, you have your supply chain, you want to link that with some geopolitical information, so you want to link that with the news. So what we do is that we ingest all this unstructured data, so in any kind of data, exactly as before, as the metadata in the knowledge graph. But for that, we don't blindly just cut the PDF in chunks. We first parse the PDF as a logical document, and then we extract entities. We create glossaries out of that. We may also match with ontologies, the domain-specific ontologies. And then everything, all this information is very structured, and we create a lot of relationships between these entities and the metadata, and then we put that in the knowledge graph. So this is the big, what we call the knowledge base, and that will be used as a GraphRAG after that. So just to give you an idea, so just very simple example. So here you have a demo, not a demo, but SAP data. And then you have a table here coming from your SAP, and that's linked with a lot of different entities. And if you look at on the right part, so the entity has a lot of different information also as well. And you can link the entity to the document that has this entity to go. For example, that's linked with some regulations. So you know that your data in SAP will be linked with some regulation somewhere. So that's a very important information for the business or the governance analysts. So the overall framework that we built looks like this. So the left part I just talked about now with the unstructured data, with the metadata from the knowledge graph, from the database, and then the knowledge graph here, and then we link that with agent framework. So if we want to look at a little bit more details of what kind of agents we use, so for example, we have kind of agents that are used like a guardrail. For example, we want to ensure that there's some security because we use enterprise data, so we want to be sure that the internal documents are treated in a sandbox, for example, are not accessed by a very open LLM, etc. So we will use a local LLM to do that. And we have, for example, a search agent that is going to use the tools in the in the agent, and then query the knowledge graph, etc. And then some analysis agent that will use the LLM and then get all these contents from the knowledge graph. That again includes all the enterprise metadata plus a lot of different information related to the domain, related to the industry, maybe competitors, and all this kind of thing. So this looks like this. So that's the first result that we get. So if you look, that's a small video. And so for example, I ask this kind of business question. So if there are any data here that is related with the REACH regulation in Europe. And so it's created a report like this. And the nice thing is that, okay, I have a list of tables that it finds. And then I can click on it and then go to the data catalog directly. And then after that, I can also go to Snowflake, in this case, to the real data and make the business analysis. So that's the first thing. And then the last thing is that, okay, we can also add, recently we had a lot of opportunities to use MCP servers. So what I did is I created also, I used MCP servers to connect first our Colio APIs with MCP, and then of course Neo4j GraphRAG. And then also to close the loop with the data layer, I used, for example, in this case, Snowflake MCP. So this shows how you can use that from the business side. So the user want to ask a question, so it will go to the LLM agent framework and then query the GraphRAG and then come back with some results, and then the business analysts can use this information to go to Snowflake and then get the data and then create a data product for the business analysis. So just to give you a concrete example, what I did first was to use, instead of the customized agent framework, I just used a black box, which is in this case Cloud Desktop. Cloud Desktop is just a black box with all the agents inside, so I have no control over that. But I use the Neo4j MCP server with Cloud Desktop, and actually it works pretty well because let's just start. If I ask a question, so for example, what is all about in this database? So please look at it and tell me what it is. So it starts with the schema, and then automatically it will make some text to cipher and then run some cipher. And then at the end, if I go a bit to the end, then it will create the same kind of reports that I had just before. And so that's funny. And interesting thing is that, for example, in this, the next one, I will ask a little bit more complicated questions. So I say, okay, if I go back here, I just stop. So find all the tables and column lineage paths. So in this case, it needs a very, very complicated cipher to go to the path in the graph. And then it was successful. So and I just asked, okay, you get that and create a graph. Okay, just to see if it can do that. And actually, you can see at the end, it has all the tables, all the metadata, and then just create a graph like that was just to show that all the data is here. And then you could also create, for example, instead of going to Tableau or BI, Power BI, or this kind of tools, then you can just maybe create a dashboard directly in the LLM, in your ChatGPT or whatever, and that's much faster and maybe more accurate sometimes. So I think I'm just at the end of my time, and so the conclusion and takeaway. So using the GraphRAG framework with the metadata of enterprise is very powerful, because then you can really have a holistic view of the enterprise data landscape and really make business insight, have business insight and business questions directly in your data without getting all the data in the data layer for security reasons. So you're just working with metadata with a lot of different informations related to that. And adding MCP server also adds a lot of flexibility and scalability here, as I saw in the last slide. And again, that can be applied to any kind of business problems like supply chain disruption risk. This is something that is very important recently, but also compliance and governance tasks do that more automatically, and especially for AI governance, that's very important. And yeah. So that's it. If you have any want to connect with me, please use my LinkedIn again, and we can discuss more about metadata and how we